I was going to share some information on the new, well, not the new, on the Sussex County Council ordinance on buffers, but we have Chris Bason here. So not to put you on the spot, Chris, but I had my notes and I was all ready, but we got firsthand. So what would you like to share with us about the buffer ordinance?
I'm happy to steal your thunder, Claire.
No, that's okay.
Yeah, so we got an opportunity, everybody. The deal is this is probably the most important environmental ordinance that the county's considered in 10, 20 years. And it deals directly with growth and making sure that that growth has some kind of modicum of environmental sustainability. And they got an ordinance right now that is one step forward and one big step backwards. And it's kind of unbelievable because it's taken 15 years to get here. But the good news is they are listening. And if enough people act and get to them and talk to them, there's a chance that they can fix this thing. Who wants to hear more? Okay, good. I haven't lost everybody. So buffers are natural areas between new developments and wetlands and waters. And they can really reduce a lot of pollution. They provide a lot of wildlife habitat. And that's important for Sussex because we got terrible water quality and we need to clean it up. This ordinance expands the width of the buffers. The width of the buffer is important in controlling pollution, right? And it puts buffers on more wetlands and water bodies. And that's good. But then that's the first part of the ordinance. The second part of the ordinance goes back and says, well, you can cut down the trees in the buffers and you don't have to plant the trees back. And then it says, and we're going to give you all these options where you can go and protect a buffer somewhere else, not on the development, somewhere else. And hope, and then you don't have to have a buffer, or you have a smaller buffer on the development. And that's what's called the options section. So the reason this is good news is because it's easy to fix. And there are four major things that need to be amended. And these are the things that folks can communicate to county council and show up on February 22nd about. So the first one is that the buffers need to be forested. There's got to be a forest in the buffer because that's what the science shows protects water quality. And of course, that's wildlife habitat. So that's why all the other jurisdictions around us, they require forest in the buffers. And that's what the science says. So that's an easy one. If there's no forest in the buffer, when the development plan gets submitted, then the developer needs to replant the forest. And that's the disincentives for them cutting it down in the first place. So that protects the forest. And in fact, for you all that live in the county, that's what's required now for the buffer that goes around the perimeter of a new development, the property boundary buffer. If there's no forest in that buffer, they're required to plant it back now. So it makes sense that they would do that for the water quality buffer. The second thing is cut the entire options section, section G. It's just crazy. It's illogical. You should never have allowances to reduce the width of a buffer. We're trying to improve protection. So cut that section. Don't try to fix it because it's illogical. I had a mentor who had a great expression that I use from time to time, and it's you can't polish a turd. And that's what's going on with section G of this ordinance. Don't try to fix it. We just need to completely cut it. The third or fourth most important thing here is we need enforcement. Specific enforcement actions, penalties need to be added into the ordinance. And if you look at how the buffers are applied today, it's very haphazard. It's some developments follow the rules, some don't. Some go above and beyond the rules. And here's a real important example. Often you see buffers on streams and wetlands and waterways that are much more than is what required today. So it is no problem for developers to put these buffers in. The Shell brothers, they do it all the time. It is not a detriment to creating development. It is just a bonus and an improvement for our water quality. So what is needed is direct contact to council. I think you probably got to do it in writing right now because they got that thing where they can't, it's during a hearing, they can't talk about it. So you got to put it in writing and write that it's for the public record. And then the hearing is going to recommence on the morning of February 22nd. So the best action you can take is to be there in person and to say your piece, say what you value, that you value clean water, and that here's what needs to happen to this ordinance. I think maybe the final thing I said is I didn't mention is that although this is not the position of the center because we were involved in a big working group and we had to reach consensus, the buffers need to be a lot wider to really protect the environment. A great example of that is perennial buffers are at 50 feet now. In the proposed ordinance, they remain at 50 feet. This is buffers of big streams here, is what I'm talking about. But in other jurisdictions, they're 100 feet, 300 feet. Okay, so 100-foot minimum buffers is what the science says for big streams. Sorry for that sidetrack there. But letters to the editor are great. And the best part of this is not a lost cause. They are listening. They are hearing from very powerful, influential interests, and they are hearing from the people. So I'm encouraging, if you do have these values for environmental protection, consider showing up. If you can't make it in person or you're not comfortable with doing that, you can provide remote testimony. And to communicate with council members in the meantime, you go to the county council page and you just kind of reference that this is for the public hearing. So Claire, thank you for letting me do that.
Oh, no. Well, thanks for coming. I appreciate it.